here in Psalms 110, if we read it in English, it says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. If we read it in the Hebrew, it says, Adonai said to my Adoni.
Understand the argument. A lot of people don't know that in Psalm 110, and I'll get you the interlinear. I'm going to send you the link. In the Hebrew, it says Neom. Now, however you want to pronounce the divine name. I know there's a debate. Some will pronounce it Yahweh, Yahovah. I don't care how you pronounce it. Jehovah, that's not the issue. But the Hebrew says Neom, Yahovah, La Adoni. The word Adoni. They'll tell you that word Adoni is never used for God. Never used for God. It's only used for humans and at times for angels. It's never used for. So what are they trying to prove? They're trying to prove, see, this is a psalm about Messiah. And the word chosen is not Adonai, which is used for Yahweh. It's Adoni, which means that Messiah is only a man. That's the argument. And no matter how many times you demolish this argument, no matter how many times you destroy this argument, this is why I get tired. Now you guys understand why I treat them the way they do. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, is it true the word Adoni is never used for God? No, that's a lie.
Nope.
If you share your Facebook, not Facebook, Skype, I'll tell you which article. Now, remember what the argument is. They'll tell you Adoni is not used for Yahweh. They're lying. Because there's something called Theophoric names. Theophoric. Remember this word, Theophorus or Theophorus, Theophoric name. What is a Theophoric name? A person's name that contains a reference to their deity. For example, Elijah. Eliyahu. That's a Theophoric name. My God is Yahu. Jehoshaphat. Judges. Right? Emmanuel. With us is God. Do you guys understand what a Theophoric name is? Now, he knows it, but I want you guys to get it. You understand what a Theophoric name is? It is a name of a person that contains a reference to his deity. So, Eliyahu, Eli, my God, Yahu, Jehovah. Emmanuel, with us, God. Israel, ruler with God. That's a Theophoric name. Theophorus. You with me there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What they don't tell you is that there are Theophoric names where God is called Adoni. Scroll down, you'll see the list. Smiling at that one, huh? You smiling? Huh? You'll see the list. You keep going. If that's, is that the one? Oh, right there. You want to go up? Here, you see it? Is Adoni never used of Yahweh? Now scroll down to the first one. Scroll down, you see it? Adonijah. It means Yah is Adoni.
Yes. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 25.
How come they didn't tell you that?
2:25, sorry.
How come they didn't tell you that? Now scroll down to the next example where Adoni is referring to Yahweh. Here, To Ba Donijah. My Lord, Adoni, Yahweh is good. Adoni Ram. Adoni is exalted.
And the funny thing is he's like, Yahweh was never exalted. I went to the Old Testament and showed where Yahweh was exalted and lifted up.
Okay, but you caught it, right? Here's another one. Adoni come. Adoni arose. There it is. He arose. But who's the Adoni in these Theophoric names?
My Lord, Yahweh.
But it's not a creature, right?
Not a creature. It's Yahweh.
How come they don't tell you that, brother?
So Adoni is used at least 1, 2.
Yep.
How many times is it?
Yeah, 3. Now Adoniram and Adonikam. The one before 4. Is there another one? Because I don't even remember my articles. Yeah, there you go.
No, yeah, 4 of them right there.
There are 4 Theophoric names where the Adoni is Jehovah. So that's a lie. It is a lie to say Adoni is never used of Jehovah. That's the first problem. Second problem. Now, if you go back to the other article, it's a Psalm 110. It's answeringislam.info. It's a say, let me see which one I say. So guys, there's so many, I can't keep up. So just be patient with me, guys. I'll show you which one. I'll mention it right now. Examining. Yeah, it's examining Psalm 110:1. A look at its implications on God being a multi-personal being.
Yeah, I got it right here.
When you put it on the screen, watch. We're going to have fun, brother. We're going to have so much fun, brother. Then I'm going to spend the remainder of time on Psalm 110. It's full of meat and it proves the Trinity. Okay, now you just put in command. If you have a Mac, you put Command F or Control F if you don't have a Mac, and put in the word brown. B-R-O-W-N. Okay, now right there, if you guys want scholarly confirmation about the point I'm going to make, and someone noted in the comment section, the Hebrew text was written with consonants, no vowel markings. The vowel markings were not added until 500 years after the birth of Jesus Christ our Lord by what's known as the Masoretes, these Jewish scribes. Why is that important? If you're not aware of this, the word Adoni, Adonai, without the markings are identical. They look the same. You can't tell them apart. That's why if you scroll down a little bit, he says in Michael Brown, I quote him slowly, you'll see he's going to see, so you're going to see a dash D right there. You see where it says the 4 consonants? The last line on the screen, it says Hebrew consonant, 4 consonants. That's Aleph, right? Dash, D,
Yep.
dash, and dash Y. That's how it would look without vowel markings. And you can't tell without vowel markings, is that supposed to be Adonai or Adoni? You know that, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to know.
In other words, if all I had was Psalm 110:1 without the vowel markings, I don't know if David said, Jehovah said to Adonai, or Jehovah said to Adoni.
So it wasn't until after Jesus'
Yeah.
resurrection and everything that
500 years after
yeah.
Jesus.
It's almost around the time Momo birthed out of his mom after 4 years.
Exactly. So now the question arises, could it be possible that Jews seeing the Christians using this text
100%.
decided to add vowel markings to water down the word? Because even though Adoni can be used for God, it can be used for humans, and therefore they wanted to then dot it to say Adoni, because then it's not as clear if it's a reference to God. Because remember, Adoni can be used for God or can be used for humans, but Adonai, as even Carlos Xavier admits in his debates, and Anthony Buzzard claims, Adonai is always used for God.
Yeah, that's what they say.
So now, what's my point if you're listening? I hope you're getting this. Could it be quite possible that the Jewish scribes coming 500 years after Christ, knowing this is one of the favorite proof texts for the New Testament and Christians, decided to add vowel markings to water down from Adonai to Adoni? Why? Because Adoni, yeah, it can be used for God, but it doesn't have to be, whereas Adonai would leave it inarguable. So this is all based on trusting that the Masoretes always correctly dotted the consonantal text. But we have evidence from manuscripts of the Hebrew, as well as writings from church fathers and writers like Justin Martyr, that there were scribes that did play with the text. For example, you'll have Hebrew manuscripts of Zechariah 12:10, which read, they shall look on me whom they pierced, but then some of them read, they shall look on him whom they pierced. Right? Moreover, Psalm 22:16, the oldest extant copy of Psalm 22:16 comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 1st century time of Christ, and there it reads, they have pierced my hands and feet. But the majority of later Hebrew manuscripts, it says, like a lion, hands and feet. Are you seeing a pattern? You're seeing in the Hebrew manuscripts variant readings that are directly related to prophecies that Christians have applied to Jesus.
It would make sense that they would change these vowel markings in the 5th century, because people like Augustine of Hippo, and of course we would have had Hippolytus of Rome, and people like that were already mentioning these verses in reference to the deity of Christ, showing the Jews that Jesus is God of the Old Testament.
Yep. See, so now the beauty of the Bible, how do we know it's preserved? Because we have thousands of copies of the books of the Bible written at different places and different times and different languages. So no one group could monopolize all the manuscripts, which is why we know when a variant reading arises, it may be due to scribes trying to cover up a prophecy about Jesus. So the Jews could not corrupt the Old Testament wholesale, because by the time the Masoretes showed up, there are already thousands of copies of the Old Testament all over the world in the possession of Christians.
Exactly.
You see? So here we have a pattern. And even Justin Martyr before Augustine, and I have an article, let me get it to you. Justin Martyr is telling Trypho, the Jew, and his friends, you Jews have produced Greek translations of the Old Testament because you don't want to endorse the Septuagint. Because we Christians, we swear by the Septuagint, translation of the 70 Jews of the Old Testament into Greek. So what did they do in the 2nd century? Group of Jews and some proselytes decided to produce different Greek versions of the Old Testament. We know of 3 in particular: Theodotion, Symmachus, and Aquila. They, in the 2nd century, produced their own Greek versions of the Old Testament to supplant the Septuagint. And Justin Martyr is telling Trypho, in these Greek versions, you played with the text. You've removed words. You've changed words. So here, let me show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get you the article, and you can show it to everyone.
Is that was that the dialogue with Trypho?
Yep. Their bread and butter. This is the passage that Carlos Xavier, Anthony Buzzard, everyone uses. So here's the article.
No, I got another hour and a half if you need it, Sam.
Glory to God. So there's the article. All right. Then we're going to go a little bit. It's going to get better. Now, Scott A, they have a response to that. They're going to bury you on that one. Say, no. The Septuagint shows that there's a difference between the 2 words. One is Kyrios, the other one is O Kyrios mu. And they'll say O Kyrios mu is never used of Adonai. When the Greek translates Adonai, they'll use either the vocative, Kyri, or they'll use the definite O Kyrios. So Scott A, no, brother. They're already on to that. Now, you see, that's the article. Now, you don't need to read it. Just here, you'll see Justin Martyr mentioning how the Jews are producing Greek translation of the Old Testament, where they're removing verses or changing the meaning of the Hebrew. Are you with me there?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying here. I did yep.
Right. So you see my point?
Yep.
Okay, now they have plan B. If they can't get you with the Adoni, they're going to get you with the Greek. This is where, Scott A, you got to be informed, because Carlos Xavier and Anthony Buzzard say, not so fast. Not so fast. What do you mean? When the Jews translated the Psalm in Greek, which was done before Christ, they noted the difference between the 2 words, because the word Yahweh is translated as Kyrios, but the word for Adoni is rendered as O Kyrios mu, or Tu Kyriou mu. See, the Lord of me. And they'll say, see, the word O Kyrios mu, Lord of me, is never used for Adonai. It's only used for Adoni in the Greek. That's their other argument. Okay, now let me show you how to bury this argument. This is another lie. And here's the article. Now, Scott A, here's how you're going to destroy that lie. So Carlos knows about these responses because I brought it against him. Here's the article saying that's a lie, because are you aware there are places where the Hebrew says Adonai and it's rendered as O Kyrios mu? The very thing they said never happens. Scroll down. Right here, I tell you, look, the Unitarians seemingly have switched strategies by now, making the claim that the phrase Tu Kyriou mu, which is the way the Greek version Psalm 110:1 renders Adonai, is never employed for deity. So let's say it's never used for deity, and Adonai is never rendered as O Kyrios mu. Lie. You lie, brother, because now I'm going to show you examples where the word is Adonai in Hebrew, but rendered as O Kyrios mu. Read it for me. Exodus 34:9. First example. If you scroll down, right there. The word is Adonai, right?
It is so.
Okay, read it for me. And the English translation, Hebrew, and then the Greek translation.
In the Hebrew, it says, and he said, if now I have found grace in thy sight, Adonai, let my Lord Adonai, I pray thee, go amongst us. For it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for thine inheritance.
Now watch the English translation of the Greek. Remember the word was Adonai, right?
Yep.
But notice why the Greek then rendered as O Kyrios mu, the Lord of me.
And said, if I have found grace before thee, let my Lord, Ho Kyrios mu, go with us.
Now, Chris, you can stop there. Did you catch it? The argument is Adonai is not rendered as O Kyrios mu in Greek, only Adoni. And O Kyrios mu is never used for Jehovah. That was an argument Carlos made. But hold on, brother. In Exodus 34:9, isn't it the word Adonai?
Yep.
And it's talking about Jehovah, right? But then the Greek renders it as O Kyrios Mou, something they say never happens.
Apparently it does.
Now read Psalm 16. The word there is even more damaging because it's talking about Yahweh, and it says, you are Adonai. Who? Jehovah, right? You are Adonai, right?
Yep.
Look at the Greek, Psalm 15, 1 and 2. How does it render? You are Adonai. Thou art Adonai, my Adonai. Now read it. It says, keep me, O Lord, right? Kiri. That's the word for God. You see, it says, preserve me, O God.
Yep.
In the Greek, it's Kiri, vakete. But then it says, he said unto the Lord Yahweh, notice, I said to the Lord, to you, thou art my Lord, Kyrios Mou. So do you see Adonai is rendered as Kyrios Mou, something they say does not happen?
Yep.
So why did he lie to us? Final example, you can read Psalm 35, 22 to 24.
And so here it says, this thou hast seen, O Lord Yahweh. Keep not silence, Adonai. So again, Adonai is being used. Be not far from me. Stir up thyself. So we know that this verse is talking about Adonai, Yahweh himself.
Yeah, because it says Yahweh, right?
Exactly. So how is it going to translate it into the Greek?
Read the last part. Stir up thyself and awake to my judgment. Read all of it. And up above Psalm 35. Stir up thyself. Read the rest of it.
Stir up thyself and awake to my judgment, even unto my cause, my God and my Lord.
Now notice it's Elohei and Adonai, or Elohai Adonai. My God is Elohai and my Lord is Adonai, right? Now remember, according to them, Adonai is not rendered as O Kyrios Mou, right?
Nope.
The Lord of me. But in the Greek of Psalm 35, 23, which is Psalm 34, notice it's my God and my Lord, O Theos Mou ke O Kyrios Mou. There it is, Adonai rendered as O Kyrios Mou. Something they say does not happen.
Wow.
You see it? And who is the God of me and Lord of me? Jehovah.
It's exactly what Thomas called Jesus too.
You got it. So hold on now, Carlos. If the phrase O Theos Mou ke O Kyrios Mou, the God of me and the Lord of me, is applied to Jehovah and you cannot apply it to a creature, how then does Thomas say to Jesus, which John translates in Greek, John 20:28, he said unto him, O Kyrios Mou ke O Theos Mou, the Lord of me and the God of me, because in Hebrew that means Thomas said to Jesus, Adonai Elohai, you are my Adonai and Elohim.
That'd be straight out blasphemy by Thomas if Jesus was not a God. Like if he's not God, that is straight out blasphemy by Thomas.
Right? And now the burial in the Greek version, there's a Psalter, Psalm 151. Okay, let me explain this. In the Greek, you have 151 Psalms, Psalm 151. Latin has 151 Psalms. Guess what? In the Dead Sea Scrolls, they found Psalm 151 in Hebrew. Now, you know why this is important? Because in the Greek version of Psalm 151, there it is David talking about Jehovah. And what does he call Jehovah? Tu Kyriou, the Lord of me. See it?
Yep.
But he's saying that to Jehovah, which they say will never be said. You know what's shocking? If you go and read the Hebrew of Psalm 151, you know what the word is? It's Yahweh. Scroll down, you'll see it. Scroll down a little bit, you see it? There it is. And what's the word? Who is it referring to? If you scroll down, keep scrolling down. Don't stop. In that Psalm 151 in Hebrew, it's talking about the Lord Yahweh. So it's the Lord Yahweh that the Greek is calling Tu Kyriou Mou, the Lord of me.
Wow. Did they ever?
Go ahead.
I don't even know how they can like, and Anthony Buzzard is the one that's like started these arguments years ago, and he's supposed to know Greek, isn't he?
Yeah, and they teach Greek.
Oh,
he teaches Greek.
That's almost as bad as Muhammad Hijab teaching that university over there, or his dad doing that.
Yeah. Now, so we destroyed that argument. Adoni is not used for Jehovah, right?
That's right.
That argument, but now it's going to get worse. Now, remember the burial. They will appeal to the Greek of Psalm 110, which is Psalm 109. Now, guys, you thought this was bad. Hey, watch how bad it's going to get. Watch here. Now it's going to get worse. Okay. they will appeal to the Greek of Psalm 110 to say, see, Adoni is rendered tu kriumu. But you know what they don't tell you? Here's another shocking thing. They do not tell you that the Greek version, the Latin version, the Syriac version, contains an older form of the Hebrew text, which is supported by many later Hebrew manuscripts, where in Psalm 110:3, God says to David's Lord, he begot him before creation.
Ah.
You ready?
Yep.
I sent it to you, but I'm going to bring it out specifically. Okay, let me show you. You ready? Okay, I'm going to hold a second. It's David's multi-personal Lord. Okay, I'm going to get you part 2 to it because I linked to part 1. It's all in the material, guys. Let me get it for you. Here it is. Here's the one you're going to put on your screen, private chat. Private chat. And this was one of the verses the early Christians used for the eternal begetting of the Son. So if you bring it up, let me share it with all you guys. Why didn't he mention that to you, brother?
It may have just passed through his mind, and he may just not have thought about it at that time, of course, Sam.
Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down slowly right there. Okay, guys, watch. This is the English translation of the Greek version. English translation of the Greek version. Read it for us. Now, remember, they're going to appeal to the Greek of Psalm to say, see, the word Adoni is rendered as tu kriumu, and tu kriumu is never used for Adonai. They want to have their cake and eat it too. So now I'm going to take their cake and stuff it down their throat. Now read it for us slowly.
The Lord said to my Lord, sit on my right until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. A rod of your power, the Lord will send out from Sion, and exercise dominion in the midst of your enemies. With you is rule on the day of your power among the splendors of the holy ones. From the womb, before morning star, I brought you forth.
The word agenisa means I have begotten you. Now, what does it mean, moon? From the womb of creation, before the morning star was created, I had already begotten you. You understand? This means David's Lord pre-existed his human birth. David's Lord was already there before creation with the Lord as his son, because if David's Lord was begotten by God before creation, that means this is the begotten Son of God who's already alive before creation, already alive when David wrote the psalm about him.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Watch the other versions. The Latin reads the same way. So do the Syriac translations. Here's Dewey Rames, which is the English translation of the Latin. Read that for us, brother.
And the Lord said to my Lord, sit at thy right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool. The Lord will send forth the scepter of thy power out of Sion. Rule thou in the midst of thy enemies. With thee is the principality in the day of thy strength, in the brightness of the saints. From the womb before the day star, I begot thee.
Wow. What about the Syriac versions? We have 2 English translations of the Pshitta, the Syriac version.
And it says here, and down for verse 3, in the glorious of holiness, from the womb, from the first, I have begotten you, son.
Before what? The first thing created, I already begot you. And then here's another version by Lemsa, the Lemsa translation.
And here it says, arrayed in the beauty of the holiness, from the womb, I have begotten thee as a child from the ages.
Do you understand? The Greek versions, the Latin version, Syriac version, Psalm 110:3, all translate a form of the Hebrew where God tells David's Lord, I already had begotten you as my son from before creation. Now, let someone say, well, you know what? This is a bad translation. And well, you're going to do me a favor. You're going to now scroll down. I quote John J. Collins, who's a liberal Old Testament scholar who does not believe in Christianity, doesn't believe Jesus rose from the dead. He says this is the original reading. Yeah, you see where it says this explains why the following biblical scholar, go up. Yep, go up, I'll tell you, and I'll start reading for you because, again, right there. This explains why the following biblical scholars, because John J. Collins co-wrote the book with his wife, Adila. Now, the Hebrew word for begotten, I begot you, is yelidika. Yelidika, same verb used in Psalm 2:7, where it says, I will tell the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. Today I've begotten you. According to John J. Collins, There are Hebrew manuscripts of Psalm 110:3 that reads, Yelid dika, I've begotten you. And he says that's the true reading.
I got it.
That's a reading reflected in the Greek, Latin, and Syriac. And he says that should be the reading preferred. So I quote, for our present purposes, that's him now. I'm reading him. The main focus of interest in Psalm 110 is the notoriously corrupt verse 3b, saying, see, in many of the Hebrew manuscripts, the Masoretic, it's corrupt. It doesn't make sense. So he says, Bihadri, Kodesh, Marachim, Mishchar, Lakatel, Yelduthika. He says, Yelduthika. No, it doesn't make sense. Yelidika makes sense. The corresponding Greek, now he gives you what the Greek says, entis, la prostisen, ton agion, ek gastros, pro hesophoru, meaning before the morning star, exiginisasi. Watch. The Masoretic points the last word as yelduthika, your youth. You'll have the dew of your youth. What does that mean? He's saying, see, that doesn't make sense. This is a liberal, brother. It's not a conservative Trinitarian. The New Revised Standard Version translates accordingly, from the womb of the morning, like dew, your youth will come to you. What does that mean? Now look at the admission. Many Masoretic manuscripts, however, read Yeledika. The reading presupposed by the Greek, meaning I have begotten you, which is in Psalm 2:7. Also supported by the Syriac. In view of the consonantal spelling in the Masoretic text, and the parallel in Psalm 2, because Psalm 2:7 has Yeledika, I've begotten you, this reading should be preferred and is accepted by many commentators. By repointing the Masoretic text, but making no changes to the consonants we read, in sacred splendor, from the womb, from dawn, you have the dew wherewith I have begotten you. And he says that should be the reading.
That doesn't even make sense. You have the dew wherewith I have begotten you.
Yeah, but he's saying we don't want to play with the Masoretic text.
Mm.
There are Hebrew manuscripts that read I've begotten you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to stay with it and go with I have begotten you.
Okay.
Because the other reading is Yelduthika. Go back up and see what it means. Slowly go up. What does Yelduthika mean? All right. Here, like dew, your youth will come to you. Your youth will come to you. Your youth, Yelduthika. What does that mean?
Yeah. I have no idea.
So what he's saying is, let's go with those Hebrew manuscripts that read Yeledika, I've begotten you, because that's confirmed by the Greek, Latin, and Syriac.
Mm-hmm.
But you understand, this is another example, right? Another example of the Masoretic scribes adding consonants, vowels to change the meaning. Obviously, we would say in response to the Christian use of it. You understand that according to John J. Collins, that he's saying, a liberal scholar, John J. Collins, he's not a Christian, who doesn't believe in Jesus being Son of God, says that many Masoretic manuscripts read Yeledika, I've begotten you, and that should be the reading. We understand what this does to Carlos now, right?
Just destroys them.
Because if Psalm 110:3 says, before the morning, before the dawn, before the day star, I already begot you, here David, by inspiration, is affirming the pre-human existence of Jesus, which he denies.
He denies it. Yep.
So why does he go to the Greek selectively?